Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. Every Tuesday morning, we are trying to put on the best sales meeting in the mortgage industry. And I think we got it. We got it made this week. You know, with the three mortgage professionals we have on here, this is the best sales meeting of the week in the mortgage space. We're gonna put Denise Donoghue on stage first, and really, the way this came about was Dan Keller had watched an interview I did with Nicole Roth, and she's a $390 million producer out of Denver. And it came out in the conversation that she was up 4.6%. And Dan's like, what? And he goes, and he knew that Denise Donoghue was up. And so he's like, Dave, can we put on an interview? I really want to find out from both Nicole and Denise, how are they up? Like, you know, everybody I know is down at least 20% or more. A lot of people are down 40%, 50%. I want to know what they're doing. Well, we couldn't get Nicole and Denise on the same week, so we're going to feature her. And then Josh Mettle reached out to me and said, "Hey, Dave, I've got a presentation I'm doing to realtors right now that is just crushing it." And so we got Josh. Josh is going to go second. What's up, Mr. Mettle?
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Dave. Team.
I like that shirt. The sweetest combination, baby.
You send me all the cool gear, Dave. I appreciate it.
Right on. So Dan, I'm going to introduce you, and then you're going to introduce Denise and conduct an interview. Josh and I will chime in, and then let's make sure, you know, at 30 minutes or so into it, we get Josh on stage to share what he's doing. You cool with that, Dan? And while I don't know that Dan needs a big introduction in this community because I've interviewed him so many times, Dan, if someone was a new loan officer watching this and they're like, who are these people? Just real quick, introduce yourself and then bring Denise on stage.
Yeah, I'd like to say at this point, I'm a veteran in the mortgage coach community. It's something back in 2011 and 12 when I was just searching all over the internet on how to be a better loan officer because I was new in the industry. I stumbled across Dave's Top Producer weekly interviews and learned a ton. And I was like, you know what, one day I want to be a part of this community. One day I want to get interviewed by Dave, much like probably Denise said the same thing and Josh said the same thing. And now look, we're able to, 2022, give back like a lot of those people were doing early on in my career. And so I'm up here in the Seattle marketplace, got in the mortgage industry in 2008. Really, to describe my practice, this is why I'm so infatuated with both Josh and Denise. I really believe in teaching financial literacy to my clients. It's more than a mortgage. And I know that's cliched and some mortgage companies have coined that, but it truly is more than a mortgage. It's a financial experience. And I believe it's up to us to teach that. And you got two of the most amazing mortgage professionals on this call today with us that are going to dive a little bit deeper into that with me. But the reason why I'm here today is, like you said, Denise, Nicole, Josh, they're doing things that a lot of us other top producers are being coached on and that we're doing right now that's just working a little bit better. And I can't wait to listen to what Denise and Josh are going to bring to the table today.
So thank you, Dan. Why don't you frame and introduce Denise, and then let's do an interview with you taking the lead.
Denise is the nerd, the mortgage nerd, right? Out of Texas, Dallas, Texas area. And I've known Denise since 2014 and just kind of watched her growth. And again, same thing. I mean, I think her background's in financial planning or the financial industries. And so I just love how she teaches mortgage and how she sells on social media and how she serves her realtors. I mean, that's really probably the best introduction I could give to Denise. Is I think she's one of the best in catering to her realtors, catering to her team, and just providing an incredible mortgage experience. So, and I know you're doing a couple of things I can't wait for you to share. I know you're at a Tom Ferry event today, so we're going to keep it really, really quick. I have studied what you're doing right now, kind of what I'm doing right now up here in Seattle, similar markets, both competitive markets. And then we just interviewed Nicole a couple of weeks ago, and she's in Colorado, right? I think that's where, Josh, you're in Utah, right? Utah, Colorado?
Correct. I'm in Utah. Nicole is out of Colorado. You're spot on.
So super Seattle, Utah, Colorado, Dallas, all really great competitive markets, similar markets. Denise is doing a couple of things differently than all of us that we're traditionally being coached on. And so I'm I'd love for her to kind of just unpack for us briefly. I know you only have a few minutes. I have a feeling I know what it is, and it has to do with being more visible and more active. But how are you going about doing that if someone doesn't follow you on Instagram like I do, or on YouTube like I do?
Yes. So, and truth be told, I don't like to be in the flesh with people. I'm more of an introvert. I feel like I sacrificed my, up when I was in high school in my 20s to have stability in my life, meaning financial stability and emotional stability. So I think because of those sacrifices, I didn't get married when I was in my 20s. I didn't have kids when I got my 20s. I don't know what it is. I'm old now where I'm like, I work really hard during the day. And so when the clock strikes 5 or whatever time, I just want to go home and pour into my family and to my people. So when I started to see, one of the first things I did is, and I started this last October. So full disclosure, I didn't start this just a couple of months ago. I didn't start it when the rates started to tank. I started this in October where I started getting more visible with my agent partners. And I think what piqued my interest in it is when I was starting to have these coffee conversations and really these Zoom meetings, because coming off of COVID, it got real easy to be like, hey, let's jump on a Zoom. I started hearing from my realtor partners that with the conversations they were having with their past clients, they would be in their DMs or they would be in their text messages, all virtual, electronic, techie ways, but they were losing business to that new agent. They would have their past client say, hey, Dan, I'm thinking of selling my house. I'm working with this new agent. And what are your thoughts on this? And he was like, man, why don't you use me as your realtor? I'm constantly what he felt. I'm constantly in front of you. We're chit-chatting on social. And the truth is that other agent, yes, they were an acquaintance of theirs, but they were in their living room, kneecap to kneecap with them more than they were in their DMs. And a light bulb went off in my head. Like, I'm an extrovert, I'm an introvert. So it's really easy for me to want to do everything on camera. I'm great on camera. You get me in, on a real stage and I hate it. And I was like, I've got to get kneecap to kneecap with these people because a lot of my competitors weren't. And I think that in that time frame, agents were thirsting because they're extroverts. They love to talk and I'll listen all day long. I had to get more kneecap to kneecap. But how do you do that at scale? Because I sure as heck wasn't going to go to coffee. I don't even drink coffee. So I never recommend going to coffee. I also don't want to spend money because I'm cheap on one-on-one coffee things. So what I started doing towards the end of last year was I was having mortgages and mimosas, private, exclusive meetings with my big teams who had recruited some newer realtors, and we needed to get back to the basics about mortgages. Particularly in the DFW area, our sales prices have grown so much. I knew I had to educate my realtor partners on the difference with jumbo loans versus regular loans because those are a little bit more strict. And so I was controlling the narrative. I didn't want those clients to go to their agents and start griping about rate or griping about tax returns. And I wanted to get in front of that and say, hey guys, we're entering into a market that's more jumbo. What that's going to mean is y'all need to be aware that clients are going to gripe more. It's not because we got more strict on our guidelines. It's because of the loan program we're now in. And also that means we're going to be writing a lot of loans that have 2 liens. And y'all need to know what that means. 2 sets of underwritings, 2 sets of processing, 2 sets of curveballs that could come at you at the bottom of the 9th of not being able to close on time. They just needed to be aware of that, because if you can get in front of that conversation versus being reactive, then your realtor's informed. And when those clients start to complain, they're like, oh, yeah, Denise told me about what the process is like with 2 liens. You've got to sign 2 sets of disclosures, and you know what I mean? So I became super aware that the market was shifting, our price point was shifting. And so hosting these private exclusive, I did market them as very exclusive. They were, big teams, anywhere from 10 agents to 20 agents. I did go all out on presentation. Now that doesn't mean expensive. So for the newer loan officers that are like, hey, my production is down, I'm trying to pinch pennies, go get a donut board all these men are like, what in the hell is a donut board? It's really cool. It has these little pegs, and you can buy donuts, which are the cheapest sugar pills for breakfast that you can buy. And you put them on a donut board, and all of a sudden it's like this gram worthy $10 breakfast, buffet. But I did do it up for the gram. And I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I know a lot of people associate me with social media, but a lot of the stuff that I at least post or share on the gram is intentional, and it is for the gram. That doesn't mean that you know everything about me and my life, and that doesn't mean that I'm constantly glued to my phone. I'm not. I delegate about 80% of my social media. 20% you have to hang on to not look like you delegate your social media. But that was getting kneecap to keep kneecap with my partners. It was getting me in front of my biggest teams. It was educating them. We had a second series where I was doing some script training with those. And what I found is that the leaders of these big teams were so burnt out and exhausted that they appreciated a third party coming in, training their people, because they were like, I mean, I'm worn out. I need someone else to come in and either validate what I'm saying. It's kind of like when mom and dad tell you to do something, but you're like, no. And then somebody else says it, and all of a sudden it resonates. It was the same kind of thing. And so what I didn't realize is that by investing that time, I scheduled it out. So the first thing I did is in September, I looked at my calendar. How many of these do I want to have a week? How long do I want to make them? What do I want, where do I want it? And what kind of food presentation do I want? Fortunately, I do have an admin on my team that's great at that stuff. So I show up. The room's already done, put together. Before I had a team, I was doing all that stuff on my own. I would have a little bucket, and I'd have all my stuff in there the night before, and I would take the bucket. It was heavy as hell, and I would bring it in, and I'd put all the stuff up, because I didn't get to where I am now without going through the tough stuff. So, but I didn't realize that at that time, getting kneecap to kneecap and hearing their stories and their struggles, and it really put me in a stronger bond with them to start my 2022 year. Because guess what? Other loan officers weren't doing it. We were still coming off the highs of 2021 and 2020. We were cashing our checks on those refis, and they were like coasting to the end of the year. Holidays were coming up, and I was pouring in. So target your top 10 realtors, get in front of them, find out what they need. The second thing that I started doing was
Quick, Denise, before we unpack all the things, Dan didn't ask at this at the beginning, but I want to make sure we drill down on this for everyone. What was your production in 2022, loans and volume?
It's 220 million, and I believe it was 720 families.
720, 220. And what is your volume? What do you think you're going to land at today?
Monday, I'm currently, as of Monday's numbers, I was at 379 families for 152 million.
And what do you think you're still in reach for the year? Like, how are you trending over last year?
I'm up a smidge. I'm up more on volume than I am on units, which is interesting because I don't have to help as many families now, but we'll probably finish at 240.
240. So guys, so she did 220 in 2021, and she's on track for 240. Guys, that's insane in today's market. Dan, real quick, what did you do last year, and where are you going to land this year?
Yeah, so 2021 was 179, so just shy of 200. And this year we are trending, right now we're trending for between probably around 130 to 140.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask Josh, because Josh is spending a lot more time in leadership and personal team production. But I want you guys to realize there's not a lot of loan officers and teams. These are teams that are up, and so it's super remarkable. You need to listen to what Denise is saying, and I've always believed doing mastermind is, in every market, one of the most valuable things you can possibly do. I'm doing a executive mastermind in the mortgage industry in Denver tomorrow, where I'm inviting mortgage executives, and I've built my entire career on that. And I just can't emphasize enough that doing realtor masterminds is pure gold. And you just heard Denise, like we were asking, hey, how are you up this year? And she just spent 15 minutes talking about realtor masterminds, because, and Denise, tell me if this is true, they make you better. Like you are actually better at your job because you led that event, you heard directly from agents, and then you are looked at entirely different with that community of people. Like you are a connector, they're getting, how much value are they getting from you in a mastermind? Like I bet they consider you an essential partner to their growth and success. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. And that's the whole thing, is you want to get out of just being viewed as a vendor, and you want to be viewed as a business partner. And so the deeper I go with the agents that will, at least do what I advise them to do, because some will hear all kinds of information they never implement. But yeah, I mean, I'm starting to capture these testimonials on video. That's something I haven't done a good job at. So that then I can share those messages with other agents. Like here's an example of how I helped this agent go from 7 million to over 30 million in 24 months. And there's a delicate way that you have to deliver that, where it's not all about you, but I want people to know that for the record, these numbers, I'm the only loan officer on my team. So when I say I have teammates, I have LOAs, LPPs, whatever you guys want to call them. My sole job is to bring the business in. There's nobody else on my team that does that. And I don't share that with you to impress you, but to impress upon you that over 700 units closed means that you have to, one, have a well-oiled machine. You have to have a process that the left hand is communicating with the right hand. And my 95% of my days are literally all about the realtors, because I've got 3 clients. I've got realtors, I've got the borrower, and I've got my team. 3 clients. And I have to keep my team the happiest, because if I don't have a happy, healthy team, they're not going to take care of the other 2 with me. But 95% of my days consist of realtor connections, helping them, researching. I mean, right now I'm at a Tom Ferry event for the next 2 days. I'm dedicating 2 full days to Tom Ferry, which is going to give me education to bring back to my realtors. It's a big commitment for me to spend 2 full days at this event in the middle of the week. But I'm doing it because I know I'll learn nuggets, tactics, strategies that I can go bring to my agents and be super, super powerful partner for them. So 95% of my day is learning what the needs are of my realtor partners. What needs do my team have? Literally every day I'm like, what do you guys need? About less than 5% is actually with the consumer. But here's the funny thing. If you look at my Google reviews, which I just started at the beginning of 2021, because all of my stuff was going to Zillow, and then we saw what happened with Zillow. I have over 280 reviews in the last probably 16 months, 280. And every single one of them say, Denise and her team are great. And this is coming from the consumer. Denise and her team. Denise showed me my rate options through this custom analysis. It's always Denise. And I never even talk to the client. I present them a mortgage coach, their rate options and their strategy through MortgageCoach through a video. That's majority of the time, that's all I do with the client. Some clients they want to talk to me, which I'll always be willing to do. But because I utilize technology in a strategic way that is still very authentic, they still feel like I'm so involved when I spend the least amount of time with the borrower. I spend the most amount of time with my employees and my realtors, because that's the annuity of my business.
Wow, so much gold in this. I'm gonna hand it back to you, Dan. I do want to just put an exclamation point on, guys. Realtor masterminds, pure gold. I'm actually rewriting an article that I did on LinkedIn. It'll be on the MortgageCoach blog, and it's my playbook on how to do a mastermind event. Denise, if you're cool with it, I'd love to schedule kind of my playbook versus your playbook and have an updated realtor mastermind playbook where we dedicate a whole hour to that. So I'll reach out to you on that. Dan, I'll hand it back to you, brother. And Denise, I know I cut you off. You were getting ready to say something else.
No, I don't know what I was going to say, but I did want to add to that. When I was coaching with Bill Hart, I think it was in 2018 or 19, I coached with Bill Hart because I knew Dan Keller coached with Bill Hart, and my life was like, I want to be as good as Dan Keller. He gave me really good advice. He told me, you're doing these masterminds, which is great with your agent partners, but what does Denise Donoghue do for fun? And I was like, well, I mean, I like to dance and I like to, but there was a point in my career that I realized I was so business all the time, because one of my hobbies is business. My mind is always going in a creative space, not because it has to. I just actually enjoy it. It's no different than a baker who likes to create cookies, and it's just how my mind is. I go to a restaurant and I'm immediately like, oh, I could do that. I can't turn it off. I love it. But he gave me really good advice that mix it up. If you do a couple business masterminds, take them to the ballpark and shoot the shit or have a beer and have that personal side too. And it was probably the best advice. I do that a couple of times a year. I'll take the ladies to go get a pedicure around Mother's Day. It's not in my nature to kind of mix that personal with business, but I feel like it's the cocktail of what you have to do, because the personal relationship will always trump always might be a strong word, but it'll trump. And this goes the same way if you lead a team, or if you're Josh and you're a leader of an organization, you have to maintain that personal relationship with people. That's the connection. That's the love. That's what will make people work for you. It can't always be business. Once, maybe twice a year, you have to be personal. And that will make the bond. I've got some agents that are so loyal because it's the combination. And so that's just my advice, is you can't always, and that's why with my social media, having a kid was the greatest way to throw in some personal stuff. Because I don't talk a lot about my relationship. There's some things I like to keep private just to be a human, but you got to mix it up. You've got to have that concoction, but masterminds all day long. Because at the end of the day, they have to pay their bills. So.
Hey guys, so we're at the 10-minute point, and I do want to make sure Josh gets to ask her a question. But Dan, if you could go for 5 more minutes, what questions you want to get out of Denise? And remember, it sounds like we're going to get her back for a full hour to unpack this, and I'm happy to invite either one of you guys to join me in that. But Dan, ask a question, then let's make sure Josh gets to ask Denise a question and give his takeaways from what he's heard so far.
Yeah, real quick, I think that you could do a totally separate call, Denise, on just the depth in which you just shared. Yeah, you do mastermind events to connect with your realtors, to meet new realtors, but it's what you do next that makes the difference. And then the same thing with your employees. That's why you can be so distant and focus 95% of your day is on prospecting and catering, because you have a team that you've probably poured a lot of time and training. And so I think if you're listening to this, you have to understand Denise just doesn't grab that little bucket and go and throw an event, and all of a sudden she's got 50 new realtors sending her business. It's a process that she goes through to get that. And then the catering, the wow experience. I wanted to ask you, I think it's so important right now. A lot of lenders are going after realtors that never did. So I coach about 60 loan officers in our region, and they're calling me and they're like, well, what do you say when you call a new realtor? What do you say to get the coffee? And I'm like, well, what do you say? Because I want to hear what they're saying. And it's so 2000s. It's so 1980s. I'm like, dude, throw that out the window. Would you mind sharing, and maybe Josh can too, and I can at the very end, what you're saying to get your value proposition across, other than, hey, I'd love to go sit down and talk business with you. Can we schedule coffee for Thursday at 9 a.m.? That's long gone. What are you saying nowadays to connect initially with realtors?
So to be fair, me in 2022 versus the 2012 when I got into this business, I have an unfair advantage. I'll just call it like that, because I've been in this business long enough. I've been doing social long enough. I have the credibility and the reputation. So it's easier, and not to toot my own horn, but if I say, I'm Denise, I'm the mortgage nerd, I wanted to connect with you, they've probably heard of me. Now I have a lot more listing agents. So I like to target listing agents because they've seen a taste of what we offer, because they've been on the other side of a transaction with us. And so my content and my custom CRM that I created on what I say to them and how I drip on them and when I send them stuff is all very strategic. It's a buildup. And when we get to the end of it, they're like, oh my gosh, this was a great experience. And so I've got 60 of those now every single month that I can target. So I don't do those cold coffee calls anymore, to be honest. But if I was to go back to 2012 or 2013, I would get with a title company, because I was always about scale. I never wanted the one-on-one. It's like, if I'm going to invest an hour and a half of my time, I want to be more than just one-on-one. So I got with a title company and I said, hey, I want to do a presentation with you, and I would pick something that you're good at. Mine was social media. Mine right now is Reels. Maybe you're really great at structuring loans or jumbo loans, or maybe you've got some bank statement programs that you can, all you're doing is fishing. What is it? What's that fish going to hook on? And what I started doing was masterminds, if you will, with a title company. I would pair up with them because I didn't have any agents that knew me. They did. In my first few classes, there were like 4 people there. I was like, oh my God, I hope there's more than one person, because that would be so embarrassing. But to your point, Dan, that's how it started. And then after that meeting, of course, there's a sign-in sheet. I want their email. I want their contact information. And then I already had a playbook of how I was going to follow up with them. In the first week, I was going to call. And when I called, it would be like, hey, Dan, thank you so much for coming to my event. What did you feel about the jumbo thing? I wanted to show you a way. And I just used Todd Duncan's circle of cash flow because I had just learned it. I had no idea how to implement it. Sounds really sexy and great. But that was my second, like, okay, I got you hooked a little bit. Now you've seen me, you know, my charisma, my personality. Now I want to talk to you about something I think can take your business to the next level. I had no idea how to do it. And I would present that circle of cash flow to the client. And then they would go into my CRM. And I've talked about this before. Every Friday, I send out an email to my database that is some sort of value add to the agent. It's not an apple pie recipe. It's like, sometimes it's, here's a social media graphic that Texas is now home of the top 500 Fortune 500 companies. Here's your graphic. Here's a sample caption. Hope this gets you more business. And that has just created a snowball times 10 years. It didn't get here overnight. Because that consistency has always been there. I never wavered on that follow-up part at all. And so to answer your question, Dan, if I call a list, I have done more sniping in the last 12 months of my career than I probably ever have. I didn't have to snipe these last few years. I was reactive and I was lazy. I didn't really know if I wanted to grow my business anymore. I'm trying to do other business ventures. And so I was just kind of like, okay, this is cool. I got to I told my CEO when I joined, I didn't want to do more than 50 million. And then I got to 100. I was like, you know what? I don't feel like a credible loan officer until I hit 100 million. That was my stinking thinking. But I was like, I want to play with the big leagues. I'm going to get to 100 million. And then 2020 and 2021 got me to 200. And I'm like, this is cool. But I was reactive. Now I snipe those listing agents. I pull quarterly reports from the title offices that tell me who the top 500 agents are. And I lead with what I know is their weakness and my strength. But I have an edge because people know me.
So real quick, we got to get Josh in here, and I want Josh to be able to ask a question, but I will say something right now because I did the Nicole interview with Dan. I just did this one. You guys have at least 3 things in common that I think everyone should take away from this. Number one, their team is their number one customer. You heard Denise speak to that clearly, and you heard Nicole talk about it when she talked about how she does iOS, or not iOS, but operating system. What's the business? EOS. Yes. When she does EOS, so that was clear. They both create tons of content and focus on realtor lead gen, but they do it through making realtors better. And they're using social media, they're using content, they're using the MortgageCoach seller buy down right now to add value to agents. Those are the 2 things that they absolutely have in common. There are others. Josh, any quick things you want to call out, or a quick question you have for Denise before we bring you on stage?
Yeah, a couple of things. So Denise, you had me at Mortgages and Mimosas. I'm like, I'm in. And how come I'm not on the invite list? You lost me with the whole donut board thing. My coach is not going to allow me to do that, but the mortgages and mimosas I'm in with. The things that stood out to me, Denise, that you said is that you've built this reputation over a 10-year period that now it's a little easier to approach those realtors. And you have this expert authority slash celebrity persona that makes it really easy to draw a crowd of realtors in. But I don't want people to get lost in the fact that that took 10 years. You don't start off that way. You start off grinding it with a title company and getting 4 people to an event. I did an open house, or excuse me, not an open house, a first-time homebuyer seminar with a realtor that we marketed for a month. Guess how many buyers we got to show up? One freaking buyer. And guess what we did again 2 weeks later? We did another first-time homebuyer seminar and we got 5. And you just build that momentum. But you have to get out of your comfort zone and you have to get yourself out there to figure out what works. There's this thing called the Ooda Loop. You essentially take the feedback from your activities and then reorientate and make decisions again on how to improve it. But if you don't put yourself out there, then you can't get the feedback from the feedback loop. So you just have to start where you are and realize this is a very long game. And in 10 years, you're going to have the persona and the reputation, if you're lucky, that somebody like Denise does or somebody like Dan does, but it takes a tremendous amount of work. The other thing that I pulled out of there was that you're spending 95% of your time teaching your team and teaching your realtor partners. So to me, I call that the genius zone. The genius zone is the zone of activity in which is high return on investment, meaning that the payoff back from educating my team or educating my realtors is a monetary high return on investment, but I bet you it's also high return on energy. I bet you that you leave that mastermind and you have more energy from the reaction from those realtors than you did before you got to the activity. So if you can figure out what your genius zone is, and you can spend 95% of your time there, you win, period. And there's no question in my mind why Denise is up. She's figured 95% of her time is in her genius zone. Magic will happen if you can create that in your business.
All right, guys. Well, I want to
just to tell you guys, my first 20 million, my playbook was doing meetings once a month with title companies. And every weekend I did open house crashing, and it was my rule that I would add 5 new realtors to my database. And every weekend, even the holiday weekends, I committed to getting 5 new relationships into my CRM. I even bought the domain Open House Crashing. I have a domain buying problem. But for those of you that are starting out, that was my playbook to get to my first 20 million. And once you get to 20 million, the number of families you're helping puts you in front of more listing agents, and that's a warmer call. So just saying that's just a strategy I used for my first 20 million.
So, and I want to call that out, guys. That was another thing that you and Nicole have in common, that you both have a very strategically important title relationship that you're leveraging to get access to the best teams, and you're leveraging to create content with. So guys, call that out. Masterminds, be valuable to agents, create content. In today's market, the seller buy down is the hot TCA strategy. Several months ago, it was the appraisal gap. Before that, it was the cost of waiting. It's always the rent versus own. There's always a strategic finance strategy that is unique in the market, that realtors need education on, that as mortgage coaches, you have superpowers that other people don't have. Yes. Denise, I will be in touch via email to get you back on the calendar, and we are super grateful for you coming in and sharing the gold.
Bye, guys.
You're amazing. See you, Denise.
All right, Dan, I will kick this one off, but then you do the follow-ups on it with Josh. So Josh has a presentation that he's giving to agents that he's crushing it on. He actually forwarded me some of the feedback. And so really, guys, you're going to hear a presentation now from, an incredibly successful team leader, mortgage professional that's changing the industry. He's done thousands of TCAs. So Josh, why don't you frame it, and then Dan, you drill him, and I'll help close out the interview.
I love it. Well, team, I think we couldn't have orchestrated this call any better, because what Denise just did was to give you like her entire business plan. And it was like a 30,000 foot view of what she's doing. We're going to zoom down into the actual, where the rubber meets the road. I'm going to show you a presentation that I've been giving to our realtor partners, my team's been giving to our realtor partners, and we're going to get super tactical. And then I'm going to forward the presentation over to Dave, and everybody is welcome to swipe and deploy it and take it out and make it your own and teach it to your realtor partners. Dan, I'm going to just kind of roll, man, but I just invite you to pause at any time and come in and ask clarifying questions, or if you see something that we can be doing better, please, I want that feedback as well. So when I go to make a first realtor call, or if I go to teach a realtor presentation, I am thinking about one thing and one thing only. What is the problem in my prospect's mind at this moment? I look at, humans, people, as having, like, if you remember, Star Wars, they had those deflector shields, right? And they would protect against the photon attack with the deflector shield. Humans have that. We have so much coming at us every day that our deflector shields are up. And if you walk into a realtor presentation and you start saying how awesome you are, boom, deflector shield, turn off, ignore, go to the cell phone. So the first thing I want to do is I want to hit my prospect right between the eyes with the number one problem. This is a formula I got from Donald Miller. I strongly suggest you write it down. It'll be the most valuable thing you ever take away from you if you actually master it and put it into your marketing and your sales calls. Donald Miller has a formula. He calls it the attention amplification formula, the attention amplification formula. How do I amplify the attention from my prospect? And it's 4 steps. He says, you always start with the problem. What's the primary problem that my prospect is experiencing right now? That's like an arrow right through the deflector shield. You get the prospect's attention. The next thing that you want to do is you want to show empathy. You want to connect. You want them to understand that you get them. You understand their primary challenge. Then we're going to show authority. So step 3 is authority. I have a solution to your problem. I've experienced that as well, and here's how I've solved it. And then the 4th step is a strong call to action. I'll stick that in the chat so everybody has it. But I wanted to start with that kind of framing, because as you look at this realtor presentation, and I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible, I want you to think about that formula: problem, empathy, authority, call to action. So I'm going to share my screen. And Dan, if you can see my PowerPoint.
Real quick, could you, I guess the solution is in the authority, Josh. Where is the solution?
Yes, it's in the authority. Correct. The authority is I've figured out a solution. I too have had that problem. I've figured out a solution, and here's what you should do next. That's the call to action.
Yeah. And so guys, another formula we talk a lot here is the amplify, where it's frame, message, tie down. And one of the biggest mistakes I see loan officers make is the one they don't frame. So, get the problem, get the attention, and then they don't do a call to action. And the call to action is not as elegant as it can be. So as all of you are listening to this, I want you to think about whether it's a video that you create on social media, whether it's a mastermind. Like, guys, I'm doing a mastermind. What's my call to action? Where's my authority? Where am I going to deliver this value? So just make sure you're really auditing what you do. And what Josh just did, it could apply to a 1-minute short form Instagram video, and it can, apply to a 1-hour presentation. Real quick, Josh, how long is the presentation you're going to show us right now? How long are you delivering that? Like what time?
When I give it to realtors, it's 30 to 45 minutes. And then Q&A can go another 30 minutes easy. You'll see that one of the things that I do to drive empathy and understanding and interaction is I ask the realtors a lot of questions. So it's not just 30 or 45 minutes of me teaching. I stop and ask a question, And I'm cool with an awkward silence until we start the energy of the room transferring back and forth. So those can easily go 45 minutes and then 30 minutes of Q&A afterwards.
And then are these usually in Zoom or in person?
Both.
Both,
But
both.
like Deborah said, the response of an in-person meeting is infinitely better than the response of a Zoom meeting.
And then lastly, how many people are usually in these meetings? What's the typical audience size?
The last presentation we gave to EXP was a joint live and in-person and Zoom. And I think there was about 40 at that meeting.
Okay, cool. All right, let's roll. Give us a lesson.
All right, cool. So look, my headline of my presentation or my email or my first sales call should have something to do with the problem that my prospect is experiencing. So I framed this presentation as the solution for contract cancellations and price reductions. How do I know that's what my realtor partners are experiencing? You see this Redfin article, Dan? Yeah. So right here, home sellers in pandemic home buying boomtowns like Boise and Salt Lake City increasingly dropped prices as buyers backed out of the market. So I'm going to start my presentation referencing some sort of an article like this and anchoring them in the current challenge or problem that they're having. And then I immediately go in, and this is something new that I did, Dan. I'm interested in your thoughts on this. I used to put this slide at the end. This is a call to action. One of the big challenges that I noticed was I'd go out and I'd do a realtor presentation and I'd be like, I killed it. Woo! And then crickets, no phone calls, no leads. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So we started adding this slide, the call to action slide, at the beginning of our presentations. And Dr. Caldini teaches us the concept of persuasion. I'm persuading a lead from this very first slide. And I just say something like this, Dan, my biggest fear is that you and I spend an hour together and we learn a bunch of like super cool ninja mortgage moves, and then we don't help anybody. So I want to start this meeting by asking these questions. What buyers were you working with in the last year who ended up not buying a home due to rates and inventory? Write those people down as we go through this presentation. What buyers are you currently working with that aren't getting offers accepted because they're lowballing and they can't qualify for a higher enough home? Do you have anybody like that? What homeowners have you talked to in the last year that expressed interest in moving, but didn't end up doing anything? They just are frozen. They're afraid of the market. And lastly, are you working with any sellers who are contemplating a price reduction? Dan, what I'll tell you is if you're working with any of those 4 type customers, I can help you. I can help you move them from on the fence to action. And so as we go through this presentation, be thinking about customers that fit any of those 4 categories. And then when we're done, I'd like to talk to you specifically about how we might want to approach them as a team. So Dan, let's be super clear about the problem today. Contract cancellations are skyrocketing. Buyers are trying to lowball sellers and causing sellers to cancel listings. Sellers are wasting a ton of money with significant price reductions. And I haven't met a realtor yet who has a price reduction mitigation strategy. Dan, I'm telling you, when you have a price reduction mitigation strategy and a potential seller's interviewing 4 realtors and you ask them the disarming question, hey, I understand you're interviewing 4 other realtors. I'm sure they're all great. By the way, did any of them talk to you about their price reduction mitigation strategy? Oh, well, no, they didn't. Well, here's an article from Redfin that says that 56.4% of properties in Salt Lake City had price reductions last month. And if you hire a realtor who doesn't have a price reduction mitigation strategy, you're literally throwing money into the fireplace. So I'm going to teach you that, Dan, so that when you go into your next listing presentation, you can just crush it with that. I'm going to go through this fast because we don't have enough time to go through it in the same detail and specificity I would with my agents. But one of the things I wanted to share is create moments of pause and interaction in your presentations. A presentation shouldn't be 30 minutes of spewing information because people just tune you out. We have to bring them back to us. And the best way I've figured out to do that is I'll get to this point in my presentation. I'll say, okay, team, 5-minute conversation. What are you seeing in your market? when it comes to contract cancellations and price reductions. Am I right? Is this what you're seeing as well? Cool. And then we have a 5-minute conversation and then we move on. I'm going to kind of skip over the stats, but I'll usually go through a bunch of Redfin data and I'll walk them through what's happening in the market. And then I have another question. I say, so why do you think price drops and cancellations are happening nationwide? What is it? And then I take them through what I really want them to understand. And these 2 slides are probably the most important slides in this entire deck. And this is what, if you're teaching rate buy down strategies, whether it's permanent rate buy down strategies or a 3-2-1 buy down strategy, these are the slides that are going to make your realtor partners go, holy crap, I had no idea. So here's what this is. If we look at the gray bar, this is the average monthly payment of a mortgage between January of 2020 till December of 2020. And if you remember what was happening with home appreciation in 2020, it was skyrocketing. Utah saw like 26 or 27% appreciation in 2020. In 21, we saw 32% appreciation. But look at the payment. The payment went from, let's call it $1,350 over to about $1,450, big whoop, $100. And then in 2021, that payment went from about $1,400 up to roughly $1,600, another $200. If you think about what was happening with wage growth at that time, the home actually became more affordable because their income actually went up more than their mortgage payments. So prices were going parabolic, but payments or affordability was going sideways. Fast forward to 2022, payment goes through the roof from $1,650-ish up to $2,459 in the average monthly payment. And that's when the brakes hit the real estate market. So this begs the question, do we have a pricing problem or do we have an affordability problem? And I would offer that this slide proves definitively that this is not a pricing problem, this is an affordability problem. And as a realtor, if we're pulling the lever of price reductions because we think it's a pricing problem, we're not getting the maximal impact. We need to figure out what lever controls affordability. And that's, of course, what we're going to dive into. One last chart just for context. You can see going back to 2015, we kind of had this slow and steady increase in monthly mortgage payments. Again, until 2022, payments go parabolic and the housing market. So how do we pull the lever to help bring about more affordability? And again, I'm going to fast forward through a few of these, but here's how I frame up the solution. And I'm going to pause here in just a minute, Dan. I'm going to actually show you 2 TCAs and then I'll pause. Here's how I frame up the solution. The seller paid rate buy down strategy is the solution to help with affordability. And that strategy has 3 primary benefits. Number 1, the buyer will have a lower monthly payments and pays a lot less interest over the life of their loan. Number 2, the buyer will be able to qualify for higher loan amounts and better properties. So if you have a buyer who's decided to exit the buying market because housing's unaffordable, this is the lever that you want to pull. And number 3, sellers win because the buy down strategy is 300% more effective at improving affordability. To summarize, less concessions from the seller and more affordability for the buyer is the solution we need to get the housing market going again. Then I walk them through a really quick TCA example, Dan, and I go right into what we call case studies. And I say, let me show you what I mean. This is the market price, 675, with the going interest rate of 5.49. These rates change every day. This is when I created this total cost analysis, but the principle holds. Let's say you reduce that property $25,000. We take it down to 650. We have the same interest rate. You save $130 per month. But if we take a $12,500 credit, so the seller wins because they're taking half the amount of concession, we buy out the MI. In this scenario, we're showing a 10% down payment. We buy out the MI, so there's no monthly mortgage insurance. That's going to cost us roughly $5,000 on this loan. And we use the rest of the money to buy down the interest rate. we now have a $301 savings, which is equal to a $59,000 price reduction. So you tell me, what serves the buyer and seller more? Either a $59,000 reduction in the sales price, good luck getting the seller to agree to that, or we get the same amount of affordability with $12,500. And then I run through 2 or 3 more of these case studies. And then we have a strong call to action at the end. Dan, I'm gonna actually bring this down, let you comment, and then maybe I'll share one more TCA before we close this thing out.
I think it's important that everyone watching understands how great of a teacher you are, Josh. I mean, and I know you've put in the work too. I know, from Donald Miller to Renee Rodriguez to all the other coaches and trainers that you've invested in. But you got to understand, when you're talking to realtors and when you're talking to borrowers, that you've got to teach. And then we're in sales. So I do think it's a good idea what you did with that call to action up front. All you did, I think if you could pull that slide back up, I'd like to show that real quick. So I think it was like your second slide. Yep. What you did with that slide is genius, because you showed your value proposition. You showed the value proposition of the whole entire, your whole entire presentation, and 4 ways that you can help them make more money. I've said this before. My number 1 job as a loan officer for you, Mr. Realtor and Mrs. Realtor, is to help you close more deals, period. And what you did with 1, 2, 3, and 4, let's find someone to help. Yeah. I want to work together. I would hate it if you sat through this presentation and I missed the opportunity for us to connect and do business together. But you just showed them 4 reasons why they should work with you, but 4 reasons why you're going to make them more money. This is genius, Josh. You did a great job.
I also want to lay over another framework of what Josh did, and this comes right out of the Challenger sale. And anybody who hasn't read this book, it's one of the all-time best sales books. And they studied the best salespeople in America and what are the tactics and the framework that they do. And it's tailor. Make sure that this way, he tailored by, here's the problems that you have. Here's empathy. Like, he was customizing it. And then you also heard Josh, he wants them to be asking questions so that he's tailoring what he's going to teach. So he tailored both with prepared content and engagement. And then he knew where the puck was going. He taught them a concept where they're like, wow, I never thought that before. And then he controlled. He led the conversation. He had, as Dad said, 4 ways to make more money. So it was a brilliant job of tailor, teach, control. And then the other thing I want to call out, you notice how he called out, I'm okay with an awkward silence.
Yeah,
Guys, it's called constructive tension. Like, this is the Challenger sale framework: tailor, teach, control, wrapped with constructive tension. So guys, this is like textbook influence for good. Anyone that is helping families get into homeownership, is helping families be strategic about that, is good. So I hope this is one of those, Denise, then Josh, we got Dan, operator, drill it down, guys. This is a masterclass. This is an incredible hour that we've just had. I'm gonna have to figure out how the Mortgage Coach Sales Boomerang Innovation Team can create micro content around this. So we got 5 minutes. Dan, any other questions you ask or anything else you want to call out in this conversation?
Go ahead, Josh. I saw you getting ready to talk.
I just want to show one more TCA that my team and I created this week, because I haven't seen anybody teach it yet as it relates to buy down. So can I show that real quick and then hand it over?
Oh, bro, you're the teacher here. You're the special guest. Bring it.
Now, you might embarrass me and say this has already been taught 5 times, so I'm just going to have to take the chance.
All right,
on this one.
no, say, be the first.
So what I'm always trying to think about when I'm engaging with a customer is, how can I show them to create more wealth? How can I challenge their assumptions? And how can I show them an alternate path to become ultimately more wealthy? My mission is to teach people how to use leverage to create wealth, and hopefully intergenerational wealth. And so this total cost analysis is one that we came up with last week when we were working with an actual specific client. We were looking at a 10% down with MI scenario. We were looking at a $20,000 price reduction. And I said, you know, conversely, maybe we could use that $20,000 to buy out your MI and to buy down your interest rate. Exactly the same as I showed you on the last total cost analysis. But we took it one step forward. We said, look, if we use that 20K to buy out the MI and buy down the rate, you save $463 a month as compared to the listing price. And what if we took that extra money? What if you made this payment, the $38.71 payment, which is the same payment on the price reduction, but instead you repurpose that additional money towards an investment? So we do this all the time on refinance TCAs, Dave, but this is the first time I figured out how to do it on a purchase TCA in this way. So if I go into the reinvestment strategy, I show that customer making the same payment of $35.10, but then they're going to take the extra $361.35 that they would have been paying with the price reduction strategy, and we invest that money at 7% over the next 30 years. Then what would happen? Well, what happens if we go down to the net worth is that we have, in any of these scenarios, we're going to have a free and clear home after 30 years. But in this scenario, we're also going to have accumulated $440,000 of investable assets, wealth outside of the real estate asset, which also delivers an additional layer of security or insurance because you've moved some of those assets outside of the real estate. And so here was the question I asked. I said, Dan, you tell me which one you want. You want to have 20 grand more equity in the home, or you want to have $440,000 in investable assets? You tell me which one of those you want. And the response was something that you might have anticipated. Well, yeah, but Josh, I'm not going to be in this house for 30 years. I don't know I'm going to be in this mortgage for 30 years. And I said, I promise you're not. I'm going to manage this mortgage for you and call you every time there's an opportunity to refinance. But that's not the point. The point is, Dan, we're starting the investment behavior. We're carving out $360 a month, which you're going to invest with a financial advisor. And that behavior is going to last for 30 years because you're going to see that nest egg grow. And once the behavior starts, you can optimize from there. But we have to get the behavior of saving started. And here's how we're going to do it.
So Josh, I mean, I am so glad you shared that. We're starting a new playlist in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel called Financial Freedom Stories. And I actually had this on the docket today because, I mean, guys, that's our mission. We believe all borrowers can achieve financial freedom. And it's one of the ways we can differentiate is if we can take everyday loan programs, turn them into mortgage strategies, and show people how to accelerate. So one, it is the first time I've seen that in the seller buy down. Maybe it's been done, but I hadn't seen it. And I'm going to actually have our innovation team make some micro content around it. So team, let's take this little financial freedom story that Josh did. Let's edit that. Let's get that into the playlist so that it's one of the first financial freedom stories in this playlist. And dude, that was pure gold and fire. So Dan, last minute, how do you want to use the last minute or so of the call, with questions or commentary on your part?
Well, I think we should anchor this down because Josh made such an amazing presentation and a point here. These reports, we use Mortgage Coach total cost analysis. We compare these 4 options, one, just to give our clients options. People, there's numerous studies out there. Borrowers want options, number one. They also want advice. And when you've positioned yourself like Josh and Denise and me and so many of these other professionals, you're equipped to give them the advice, but you give them the options first. So I love, and then you ask, which one would you prefer? That's so key. And then you probably, I've never been in a mortgage planning meeting with you, Josh, but you probably just shut up, right?
Shut up. 100%.
And then I love this because I use this. This is a script that I use whenever I give them options very similar to that. They're like, you know what they want. They don't want to make the higher payment. Most of my people are like, yeah, but I'm not going to be, like you said, I'm not going to be in this mortgage for 30 years. My response to that is, and you said it way better than me, Josh. I love the word behavior. My response is always, no, I know you're exactly right. You won't be, but you will be in a mortgage for the next 30 years, unless I'm wrong. Is there money that I don't know about that we haven't talked about yet? Inheritance, trust, some savings account you have. No, you're right, Dan. So you're spot on with this whole, I'm here to help with the behavior around using these options to show you how to be more financially literate. I love it, man. I think people need to understand that. Like I started the call today with you guys. One of the things that Denise does really great and Josh does really great is they teach financial literacy. This isn't mortgage options. This is big picture financial planning.
And I want to make sure everybody heard that, like whether the client does what Josh showed them or not, they got a new level of financial literacy. He delivered a new level of value to that consumer. And when you deliver value, you get better conversion, you have less price exceptions. A number of the financial freedom stories that will be in here are also powered by boomerang alerts, sales boomerang. And I know the last interview I did with Josh where credit inquiry alert came through the CRM, they were going to get loan from big bank. MortgageCoach comes in, delivers advice, not price. That family is going to achieve financial freedom faster as a result. So guys, we have put Josh's links to both his presentations in the links below. So if you're watching this on YouTube, there's show notes down below on all of our interviews. Click on that little arrow, see it all. There'll be links to these, so it's truly a lesson. Josh is going to share with me the presentation. So you're going to get these slides. Please play it forward. You know, like make sure if you use these slides and you do something better, share that in our Facebook group, like play it forward. If you think you have a killer presentation or a formula for a mastermind that you're doing with realtors, I want to shine a light on that in the upcoming weeks. We'll have Denise Donoghue back, but I want to make sure that anyone that's a mortgage coach, and use a sales boomerang, you have a competitive advantage. So Dan, thanks for being the inspiration to this. Thank you for co-hosting these with me. Josh Mettle, you the man.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure being with y'all.
Yeah, if you got value, give this a like and make sure you follow the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. Take care, everybody.
See everybody. Cheers.